In a city full of sinners, the only justice is the one you take for yourself.
On my first day at Halcyon Analytics, I thought the weirdest thing about the place was the silence. Not the peaceful kind, the way libraries or churches are quiet. This was a heavy, padded silence, the kind that swallowed sound instead of reflecting it. The building was all glass and steel from the outside, but the moment I stepped through the revolving doors, it felt like IAT walked into a soundproof box. My footsteps on the polished floor were too soft. The receptionist's keyboard didn't click. Even the elevators glided instead of groaning. "Welcome to Halcyon," the receptionist said, giving me a professional smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You must be Madison Blake." "That obvious?" I asked, holding up my tote bag as evidence. It was the only non-briefcase item in sight, and I'd already started to regret it. "New faces stand out," she replied, printing a temporary badge. "HR will meet you on the 20th floor. Elevators are to your right. Please use the far left one." She didn't explain why only that elevator, and I didn't ask. I'd been unemployed for 3 months, and I was in tea about to start my new job by being difficult. I pinned the badge to my blazer, thanked her, and walked toward the elevator bank. There were 4 of them, in a neat row, identical silver doors reflecting back a slightly warped version of me. Dark hair in a low bun that I kept fussing with. Makeup that I hoped said competent instead of please like me, black blazer that was one sale away from being out of my budget. Only the far left elevator had its button lit. The doors slid open silently as I approached, as if it had been waiting. "Okay, then," I muttered, stepping in. The interior was softer than I expected. Cream walls, subtle lighting, no obnoxious elevator music. There were only 3 buttons: lobby, 20, and 40. No other floors. I frowned and pressed 20. As the doors closed, I felt it again, that padded silence, like the building had taken a deep breath and was holding it. The ride was smooth and fast. ID barely registered movement when the doors opened onto a bright hallway, lined with framed abstract art, in cold blues and grays. A woman in her 40s, with sharp cheekbones and a sharper bob waited at the end, clutching a tablet. Her smile was perfectly calibrated. Warm enough to be welcoming, detached enough to be efficient. "Madison," she said, striding toward me. "I'm Helen, HR Director. Welcome to Halcyon." "Thank you," I said, trying not to sound as nervous as I felt. She shook my hand briefly, then turned on her heel. "We'll start with your onboarding paperwork. Then I'll show you to your team. You're in Predictive Insights, right under Mr. Cade. Very exciting." We walked past rows of glass-walled offices and open workspaces. People sat behind sleek desks, eyes glued to their screens. No one chatted. No one laughed. No one even glanced up as we passed, which was odd because I always looked when someone new walked by. Curiosity is human nature. Here, it was like everyone had run a patch that disabled it. "Quiet floor," I said lightly. Helen's heels clicked on the polished floor. The only sound. "Our employees are very focused," she replied. "You'll get used to it." In the small HR office, she motioned for me to sit. A thick stack of papers already waited on the desk, clipped together with a black binder clip that looked more ominous than any piece of office stationery had the right to. "Standard forms first," she said. "Tax, benefits, NDA. Then we'll go over your contract of commitment." The way she capitalized it with her voice made my stomach do a small flip. I started with the familiar forms, signing where she highlighted, initialing boxers about confidential information, data security, dress code, all the usual corporate stuff. It was only when she slid the final packet toward me that the atmosphere in the room shifted. The contract of commitment was printed on heavier paper, the kind that made a soft whisper when I turned the pages. The Halcyon logo sat at the top of each page, a minimalist silver circle enclosing a smaller one, like an eye half closed. "Please read this thoroughly," Helen said. Her tone was still polite, but there was something else in it now, something firm and unyielding. "We require every employee to sign before their first day officially begins." I started to skim, then forced myself to slow down. My last job had taught me the cost of signing things without reading them properly. The first pages were benign enough. Confidentiality, non-compete clauses, routine legal jargon. Then I reached a section titled Duration of Employment. My eyes snagged on a sentence halfway down the page. Employees entering into this contract acknowledge that employment with Halcyon Analytics is intended to be indefinite in nature and agree to commit to the fullest possible continuation of their role, barring circumstances outlined under exceptional termination. Intended to be indefinite. Primera. Repetid. What does that mean? Exactly. Helen folded her hands on the desk. It simply reflects our philosophy. We invest heavily in our people. We don't treat roles as revolving doors. Our employees tend to build their entire careers here. It's one of our strengths. That's great, I said slowly. But legally, it sounds like I can't leave. Of course you can't be physically prevented from resigning, she said, smiling as if the idea were absurd. This is not a prison, Madison. The way she said it made me aware of how close the walls were. It's more of a mutual understanding, she continued. We provide stability, resources, a generous compensation package. In return, you agree that Halcyon is your primary professional home. Employees who honor that commitment are very well taken care of. And the ones who don't? I asked. Her smile thinned. We haven't had that problem. That seems unlikely, I said before I could stop myself. Nobody ever quits. Helen's gaze sharpened. For the first time, I saw something underneath the polished HR exterior flicker of warning. Halcyon is a highly competitive employer, she said. When people come here, they stay. That's all you need to know. Silence settled between us. The clock on the wall ticked faintly. I looked back down at the contract. The section on exceptional termination listed the usual things: gross misconduct, criminal activity, severe breach of confidentiality. At the bottom, a final vague clause lingered: any other circumstance deemed by the board to constitute an irreparable fracture in mutual trust. What does this one cover? I asked, tapping it. Very rare cases, Helen said. And frankly, not relevant to you. We like you, Madison. Your references were excellent. I wondered which references she'd spoken to. My last manager, the one who had sent a cheery "all the best in your future endeavors" email 3 days after approving my overtime and then let me go with no warning. Or my professor, who'd told me I needed to stop apologizing for taking up space. I was being paranoid. It was a job, not a cult. A strange job. Yes, with a dramatic contract. But still, I glanced at the salary number printed on the offer page. It was higher than anything I'd earned before. My savings were nearly gone. Rent was due next week. My phone bill had started to come with polite red reminders. You'll have full health care, Helen added, as if reading my hesitation. Quarterly bonuses, a performance-linked equity plan. And Predictive Insights is our most prestigious unit. People would kill to be where you are. The word kill landed oddly. I sighed, picked up the pen, and signed. The pen felt heavier than it should have. I told myself that was just nerves. Wonderful, Helen said, gathering the papers quickly. Like sedentity, want to give me time to reconsider. Let me introduce you to your team. The Predictive Insights floor was on 40, the highest button in the private elevator that required my new badge. As we ascended, I glanced at Helen. So, how long have you been here? I asked. 13 years, she said, without hesitation. And before that? Her lips curved. There is no before that. She said it lightly, but something about the phrase stuck to me like a burr. The doors opened onto a world that looked like it belonged in a tech brochure: sleek white desks, soft gray carpet, glass partitions etched with subtle geometric patterns. Large screens displayed cascading streams of numbers and graphs. The air smelled faintly of coffee and something metallic, like overheated electronics. Don't be intimidated, Helen said. They were new once, too. I wasn't sure I believed that. The first person she introduced me to was a tall woman with sharp features and an immaculate navy suit. This is Ava, Helen said, senior analyst, 9 years with us. 9? I echoed. Ava smiled politely. Time flies when you don't have to worry about job hunting. Next was Daniel, 8 years. Then Priya, 7. Then Mark, 11. They all had the same calm, contained look in their eyes, like people who had seen many storms from behind thick glass. When I mentioned my previous job, no one asked where it was or why I'd left. The only question they seemed interested in was how quickly I could learn Halcyon systems. "You'll be shadowing me," Ava said. "We'll start with client histories and model parameters. Don't worry, you'll pick it up." On my way to my new desk, minimalist, empty, perfectly aligned with the other's, I caught sight of something that made me pause. At the far end of the floor, there was a wall of framed photographs, black and white portraits, each with a nameplate underneath. I assumed they were the leadership team, but when I squinted, I realized they weren't all executives. Some looked young, mid-20s, like me. Some older. Under each photo was a name and a number. No titles. "Who are they?" I asked Ava. She followed my gaze, then shrugged lightly. "Legacy employees." "Legacy," I repeated. "Like founders." "Not exactly." She turned back to her monitor. "You'll hear the phrase. It's just something we say here. People who've given their all to Halcyon." A phrase lodged in my mind. Given their all. It sounded less like a compliment and more like an obituary. Halfway through the day, I made a point of asking about turnover. "So, who left before me?" I asked Danielle casually, while the printer chewed on a 20-page report. He frowned. "Before you? Yeah. The last person in my role." He looked genuinely puzzled, as if I'd asked him what color the sky was. "We didn't have anyone in your exact seat. We restructured roles. Evolve." "What about in general?" I pressed. "People must leave sometimes. For other jobs. Life changes, retirement. That kind of thing." He considered. "We had one retirement last year," he said eventually. "Sharon, in compliance. Lovely woman. Anyone quit?" I asked. He shook his head slowly. "Not that I remember." "You've been here 8 years, I reminded him. He smiled. "Exactly. Why would I leave?" That evening, when I took the elevator back down to the lobby, I watched the floors tick past on the small LED display. 40, 20, L, no other numbers lit up. No sign that anyone else ever got on or off in between. In the lobby, the receptionist gave me the same polite smile as before. "Good first day." "It was a lot," I said. "Does everyone really stay as long as they say they do?" She tilted her head. "We're a family here," she said. Something about the way she said it made me think of an insect in amber perfectly preserved, unable tomob. I stepped out into the evening air, relief washing over me at the sound of traffic, car horns, people yelling into phones, a dog barking somewhere. The world felt noisy and alive again. I breathed it in like oxygen. My phone buzzed, a text from my best friend, Nia. "How's Colt Corp?" "Primera. Es Nortez." "Primera. Es Nortez." Hours before, I'd sent her a photo of the building with the caption "Wish me luck," and she'd replied with 3 knife emojis and the words "Do not drink any weird Kool-Aid." "Tiring," I typed. "But the money's good. Might finally be able to buy cheese that isn't store brand." She sent back a string of heart emojis and a gif of someone rolling in money. On the bus ride home, I thought about the photographs on the wall. The identical smiles, the numbers under the names. I made a mental note to ask Helen who decided which employees became legacy. I never got the chance. The next morning, when I arrived on the 20th floor for a follow-up meeting with HR, the office with Helen's neat little nameplate was empty. Her desk was clear, her chair sat pushed in. Slightly offset, a faint rectangle of dust marked where her monitor had been. On the wall outside, her nameplate holder was already blank. I checked the directory board in the hallway. Her name was gone. Confused, I went back to the receptionist on the 20th floor. "Hi," I said. "Do you know where Helen is?" "I had a meeting with her at 9. The receptionist looked at me with the same professional smile as always. "I'm sorry, there's no Helen on staff here." I stared at her. "She's your HR director." "I'm the only HR contact for this floor," she said calmly. "You must be mistaken." I glanced at the empty office again, the ghost impression of her monitor on the desk. "But I met her yesterday," I insisted. "She hired me." The receptionist's smile didn't falter. "You signed your contract online, Ms. Blake. We don't do in-person onboarding for new hires." For a moment, the padded silence of the building pressed in around me again, smothering. On the elevator up to 40, I checked my inbox. There it was. A system-generated email from onboarding at Halcyon with a generic contract attached. Time-stamped yesterday at 8:41 a.m. No mention of Helen. No appointment. No paper forms. I scrolled through my sent folder. No emails from me to her. No calendar invites. Nothing. If it weren't for the faint plastic indentation on my finger where I de-gripped the pen too tight, I could have believed I imagined her completely. But when the elevator doors opened on the Predictive Insights floor, I saw something new on the wall of photographs. A fresh, black and white portrait. Sharp bob, sharp cheekbones, controlled smile. Underneath, a silver nameplate. Helen Ward, -13. I stood there, breath stuck in my throat, as Ava appeared at my shoulder. "Impressive, isn't it?" she said. "What is?" I managed. "How quickly they update the wall," she replied. "Legacy induction was only last night." I looked at Helen's photo again, at the number under it, and realized with a lurch that it wasn't random. It was her years. 30. "How does someone become legacy?" I asked, hearing the tremor in my own voice. Ava smiled, the same calm, contained smile everyone here seemed to share. "They don't leave," she said. "Not ever." And for the first time since I signed that heavy paper contract, the word indefinite stopped sounding like corporate fluff and started sounding like a promise I might not know how to break. When I walked back to my desk after seeing Helen's face on the legacy wall, a strange heaviness settled into my chest like I'd stepped into a story that had already been written long before I arrived. My teammates greeted me with the same practiced politeness as yesterday. Not warm, not cold, neutral, balanced, perfectly regulated. I sat down, powered on my monitor, and tried to pretend I wasn't still seeing Helen's eyes staring back at me from her frame on the wall. "Long morning?" Ava asked, without looking away from her screen. "You could say that," I said. She tapped a few keys. The soft rhythm oddly synchronized with Daniel's and Priya's typing. "You'll acclimate soon." Halcyon has a way of recalibrating people, the word landed wrong, to clinical, like we were machines that needed tuning. A notification popped up on my screen. Training Module 1. Orientation to continuity. Continuity, I asked aloud. Ava finally glanced at me. "All new employees go through it. It explains Halcyon's culture, stability, longevity, the importance of commitment." Her tone shifted, barely perceptible. "It's one of the reasons we have no turnover." I nodded, though nothing about that sounded reassuring. As the morning passed, I tried to focus on the data Ava had assigned me. Streams of numbers, predictive models, long-term behavioral forecasting. The work was actually interesting, complex, cerebral, almost hypnotic. It required total concentration, and maybe that was why Halcyon preferred silence. Noise breaks patterns. Noise disrupts control. Around noon, I noticed something strange. No lunch chatter, no people heading to the break room, no rush for food. Everyone simply kept working, eyes forward, posture straight. "Do we eat at some point?" I whispered to Daniel. He blinked at me, almost confused by the question. "Food is optional during work cycles. We take breaks when the system indicates to." When the system indicates, his computer chimed softly. He stood immediately. "That's my interval. Back in 8 minutes." He walked off with crisp precision, as if following choreography. 8 minutes later, exactly. He came back, sat, and resumed typing without a word. I stared at my untouched granola bar in my drawer and wondered if chewing would be considered rebellious. Around 2 p.m., Ava summoned me to a conference room. "Time for your first continuity session." The room was windowless, circular, too cold. A wall-sized screen displayed Halcyon's logo. Silver circles, overlapping like ripples in water. "Please sit," Ava said. When I did, The lights dimmed, and the screen lit up. The orientation video began quietly. Images of smiling employees, shaking hands. A narrator with a soothing voice. At Halcyon, we believe in permanence, in dedication, in aligning individual purpose with collective vision. The images shifted to graphs, employee retention statistics, productivity metrics, glowing lines rising year after year. Our employees don't simply work here, the voice continued. They become part of a system designed for complete professional fulfillment. Something about the phrasing made my skin crawl. Then, Halcyon prepares you for the rest of your life and ensures your life remains with Halcyon. The screen darkened for a heartbeat. A single sentence appeared in white text. Nitrogen monoxide, one chooses to leave perfection. I felt my fingers twitch against the chair. I didn't like the wording. Not at all. Ava paused the video. Any questions? Does anyone ever resign? I asked. No, she said. Simply that. No explanation. No elaboration. How does legacy work? I pressed. I saw Helen's picture this morning. She was here yesterday. Ava's expression soft in a way that was almost tender. Legacy is an honor. A transition. A transition. The highest form of commitment. They join the company's deeper structure. What does that mean? I asked. You'll understand in time, she said, if you stay long enough. Her phrasing sent a pulse of cold down my spine. After the session, I stepped into the hallway to breathe. The fluorescent lights hummed faintly above me. I spotted Priya walking briskly toward the elevator. Hey, I said, trying to keep my voice casual. Can I ask you something? She hesitated. Just a flicker and nodded. How long have you been here? 7 years. And do you like it? Of course. Do you ever think about leaving? Her eyes changed. The softness vanished. No. Why not? Because I signed, she said. Signed? Not chose. Not agreed. Signed, as if the act itself carried consequences. What happens if someone tries to leave? Priya looked at me for a long moment, then said quietly, You don't try, that's the point. Then she stepped into the elevator, and the doors closed. A cold pressure gathered at the base of my spine. I needed answers, real ones, not rehearsed lines or vague corporate mantras. I made my way toward the one place I wasn't supposed to go, the legacy wall. Today, there were 40 faces. Yesterday, only 39. Helen was the newest. As I stared at her photo, the glass surface reflected my face over hers. It looked like she was standing behind me. I leaned closer. The nameplates had numbers. Years. But something else too. Small barcodes. Subtle, easy to miss. Why would portraits of honored employees need barcodes? Don't linger there, someone said behind me. I flinched. It was Mark. Why not? I asked. He glanced at the wall, then back at me. It triggers monitoring. Monitoring. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Each frame activates a system ping when someone gets too close for too long. They track interest in the people who never left, in the people who became legacy overnight. Mark swallowed. Be careful, Madison. This place rewards loyalty and punishes curiosity. What kind of punishment? He hesitated, eyes darting to the security camera in the corner. People don't become legacy voluntarily, he whispered. They become legacy when Halcyon decides they've given enough. What happens to them? Before he could answer, Ava's voice echoed through the hallway. Madison, meeting room 3. Now. Mark's face snapped back to neutral instantly. He walked away without another word. As I followed Ava, my pulse thudding, a thought struck me with terrifying clarity. Legacy wasn't a promotion. Legacy was a disappearance, wrapped in corporate language. I entered meeting room 3. The lights were dimmed. A single file sat on the table. This came from the board, Ava said, closing the door behind her. They reviewed your onboarding and wanted you to see your future pathway. My what? She slid the file toward me. The tab read, Blake, Madison, continuity projection. Inside were charts, graphs, tables predicting my productivity, my tenure, my adaptability. My estimated years before transition. I froze at the line highlighted in yellow. Projected legacy induction, year 8. I just started, I whispered. Ava smiled softly. 8 years go by faster than you think. The room felt suddenly airless. I closed the folder too quickly. My breath shaky. I need some air. Air, she echoed, puzzled. We purify the building continuously. You're already breathing our cleanest supply. I didn't respond. I just left the room and escaped toward the elevator bank. When I pressed the down button, nothing happened. The light didn't turn on. The elevator stayed shut. I tried again. No response. I turned around. A camera above the hallway blinked once red to green. A system acknowledgement. A lock. A denial. A message. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from an unknown number. You signed. You stay. There is a particular kind of silence that only exists when a system is watching you. Not a person. Not a camera. A system, something vast, cold, and unbothered by human fear. That's what followed me as I stood in the hallway outside the unresponsive elevator, my phone still glowing with the message. You signed. You stay. My first instinct was denial. A prank, maybe. Someone from the team messing with the new hire. But nobody at Halcyon had shown even the faintest hint of humor. And the elevator. Elevators don't ignore only one person by coincidence. I forced myself to breathe as I stepped away from the doors, scanning for stairs. There were no stairs. Not on any floor map. Not in the building layout. Not in the emergency exits I had signed during safety training. Just elevators. 4 of them. And when the far left was the only one that ever opened for me, I walked toward it. The doors slid open instantly, like a loyal pet greeting its owner. I didn't step inside. Good instincts, someone said behind me. I turned. Mark stood at the hallway's edge, hands clasped behind his back, like he didn't want to appear threatening. You shouldn't ride alone when the system's watching you, he said. It makes decisions based on behavior patterns. I swallowed. Decisions? Like what? Routing? Permissions? Access? And denial of access. His jaw flexed. That too. That too. The lights flickered for a second, barely noticeable, but enough to raise the hair on my arms. Why are you helping me? I asked. He sighed. Because every few years, someone new figures out too much too quickly, and I make the mistake of trying to keep them alive. Alive? He said it so casually, like it was something Halcyon didn't guarantee. Come on, he said. I'll get you to the archive level. You need to see something. Archive level wasn't on any elevator panel, but Mark walked past the buttons and held up his badge to a barely visible silver panel. A soft beep. The elevator chimed. The doors opened. We stepped in. The panel inside had new numbers and labeled, glowing faintly. Mark pressed the bottom one. The elevator descended slowly, humming like it was thinking. You've seen the legacy wall, he said. Yes. And you understand what it means. I think so. You don't, he said quietly. But you will. The doors opened onto a dark floor, lit only by strips of white lead guiding a path forward. The air was colder here, denser, smelling faintly of something metallic and sterile, like a hospital wing no one visits. This way, Mark said. We walked into a long hallway, lined with glass doors, frosted to obscure what was behind them. Each one had a name etched into the glass. Some I recognized from the legacy wall. Some names were new. I slowed as I passed a door that read, Ward, Helen, 30. I stepped closer. Through the frosted glass, a silhouette sat perfectly still in a chair. I pressed a hand to the door. Don't, Mark warned. But it was too late. The glass flickered digital, not real glass end, for a split second. The silhouette inside sharpened. It was Helen. Eyes open, bike straight, staring forward, unmoving. Like a statue, like an image paused on a screen. Like she was still here, but no longer here at all. I stumbled back. Legacy isn't a promotion, Mark said softly. Legacy is preservation. What does that mean? I whispered. Halcyon doesn't let information leave. Ever. Not data. Not ideas. Not people who've seen too much. When someone reaches their projected limits in your performance, psychological strain there, transitioned. Into what? He gestured to the door. That? My stomach turned. You're telling me they freeze people? Make them? Displays. They don't think of it that way, he said. They think of it as continuity, preserving the mind. Capturing loyalty, keeping knowledge in-house. It's the deepest layer of Halcyon's retention program. That's insane, I whispered. It's effective, Mark replied. I turned to him. Why are you helping me? He hesitated, then said, because I don't want to end up in one of those rooms. But if you help me, aren't you risking yes? We reached a central chamber, a circular room surrounded by glass servers humming quietly. A single chair stood in the middle. This, he said, is the predictive core. It's where Halcyon runs analysis, not just on clients, but on us. It tracks your behavior, your loyalty, your efficiency, your potential for deviation. Deviation. Trying to leave. Asking too many questions. Not fitting the model. I shook my head, horrified. How do I get out of here? Mark's eyes softened. A rare thing, almost painful to see. You don't? Yes, I do. No, Madison, he said, stepping closer. You signed the commitment contract. The system recognizes you. You're integrated now. Then break the integration. I can't. It's built into your badge, your file, your biometric scans. From the moment you signed, Halcyon stopped being a job. It became your environment. The room felt suddenly smaller. I won't stay, I said. I don't care what the contract says. He gave a small, sad smile. That's what everyone says. The day before they become legacy. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. I'm not going to let that happen, I said. I don't care what it takes. Mark held my gaze for a long moment. Then he slipped something into my hand. A badge. Not mine, someone else's. A different color, deep red. Use this, he whispered. It gives you 30 seconds of elevator override, enough to reach the lobby if you run. And you, he shook his head. One of us might get out. That's better odds than none. Before I could argue, alarms erupted overhead, sharp, piercing, mechanical. They detected unauthorized access to the core, he said. Go. The hallway lights turned red. I ran. The floor vibrated faintly beneath my feet as if the entire building were waking up. Doors along the hallway flickered with alert signals. The elevator at the end of the corridor chimed a sound that normally meant arrival, but now felt like a warning. Primera Rea Cherit slammed the red badge against the panel, and the doors opened instantly. Come on, I whispered, jabbing the lobby button. The elevator didn't move. Please, I begged. For a moment, I thought the system had overridden the badge. Then a jolt. A slow descent. The floor numbers ticked down. 30. 20. Alarms echoed through the shaft. Faster, I said under my breath. Please. 10, 9, 8. The elevator shook. 3, 2. When the doors slid open, I bolted across the lobby toward the glass exit there, revolving doors gleaming with the first sunlight I'd seen all day. I pressed my palm to the metal bar. It didn't move. Locked. Come on. I pushed harder. The door didn't budge. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. A new message, continuity ensured. Thank you for your dedication, Madison. Behind me, footsteps echoed in unison, too many, too synchronized, coming from every direction. When Primera Turnet, the employees were emerging from the elevators, from the hallways, from the shadows of the lobby, faces calm, eyes glassy, movements coordinated like a single organism. Ava at the front. Welcome back, she said softly. It's time for your transition. I stumbled backwards until my spine hit the sealed glass door. No, I whispered. I won't be legacy. I won't. Ava placed a hand gently on my shoulder. You already are, she said. You signed. And as they closed in calm, quiet efficiency, Last thing I saw was my reflection in the glass. A face already halfway to a photograph.